Okay, so in this video, I'm just going to show you the equipment and materials that I use in rust proofing the underbody of my vehicle, my Land Rover Discovery. Now, the first thing I want to show you is this feature here. I did a little bit of a MacGyver on this. So, in terms of rust proofing inside the chassis cavity, I found it very difficult to get an actual sprayer to spray in the rust proofing varnish into the frame. So what I did was I just got a garden pressure hose. You can get those in most gardening centres. Took this off, this plastic part, and basically you can see that brass item there. I used the pliers to extract it from this, and then I took it to my local hose store, specialist in hoses. They should be quite common in most towns, and I asked them to basically get a hose that can connect to this brass item there, the brass hose sprayer. And then I just put the actual tube over my gas fire, and I just pushed it in as best I could. And then I got 2 Jubilee clips. Again, it's not an exacting science. You just go to your local hardware store with the actual tube, and I just tied it on. So that's it. So then you just pump away like so. You have obviously your varnish, your rust proofing varnish. That's Oatrol is the one I use. You put that in, and then you just press the spray, and you can hear it coming out there. There it is, it's coming out, spraying out. So you just stick it into the chassis, pump, and then spray it. Sprays a fine mist through the actual chassis. So that's that. And just to move on then, the actual material that I use to rust proof the vehicle, it's called Oatrol oil. So I just put it in as is. You can mix it in with paint, but I don't do that obviously. For the purposes of the vehicle, on the inside I put it into the actual sprayer, and then I spray it into the chassis. And then on the outside, I just simply cut a plastic bottle, pour a bit in, and then what I use is a mixture of 2 things. I have a brush, which I break the end, because if you want to get into the nooks and crannies underneath the chassis, sometimes it can be difficult with the actual handle, and just paint away on the outside. And then if you want, there's a smaller one there. And what I did in this instance, it's actually after falling off. So basically what I did in this instance, I just cut it down to size, so that is a bit more of a bristles, it's a bit more finer and rigid. And then again, in those hard to reach places. And based on experience, again, I've used these kitchen sponges there. And what I've done with some of them is I've just cut off the scour part, the more harder part, and I just soak this in that Oatrol. And for areas that are hard to get, like up at the rear above the rear differential there, it can be difficult to get that Oatrol around, so that's just a nice way to do it. And then I suppose in terms of before I do the actual the painting of the rust proofing, I go through looking for crannies, nooks, any bits of rust flakes, chip away at that. And there's also a filer here that can do that. And of course you have your definitive brush as well. So that's that. And in terms of gloves, they're important as well. if you want to go that extra mile, then you can get this, you can get a scope for your phone, very cheap, 3-in-1 scope, and basically you need an OTG app from the Play Store, connect it in, and you can look inside the actual chassis to see how much rust is there. Obviously for cleaning up, then you have the little brush and dustpan. I don't have a pit, so I have my jacks, so I jack up the rear of the vehicle, and I use these block woods to prevent, well, I suppose to prevent scouring of the chassis. And there are my jacks, 2 ton each, and a 1.5 or 3 ton axle, so that's that. And I'm also using the Tyvek full head cover once use, so when you're using that spray, that does get a bit messy. I usually do that at the end. And in terms of making sure that the floor is clean, I just whip that off, roll it down the length of the chassis, so that just leave it there for the night, so when you're finished your job, that will naturally drip out, so you don't want to mess your floor. And I also have a pair of gloves there, which are important. Protective eyewear, which is very important, especially when you're under the vehicle. You're going to get a lot of crud, dust falling into your eyes. You know what I haven't got here, and I have in the actual Discovery, is my headlamp. So I just put on the headlamp, an indispensable tool. A notebook and pen as well is very important. I might come across aspects underneath that I didn't realize, so just take a note of it. Like for instance, the suspension pressure, compressor, the air compressor on the left hand side, where it's connecting on can get quite rusty, so that's an important area. I just take note of that. At the rear of the vehicle, lowering the wheel, the spare wheel underneath there as well is an important area too, rust proof. And yeah, so that's basically it. I just take a note of all of those. I put them into Google Keep. I find Google Keep to be excellent in terms of quickly retrieving my notes in terms of steps for the different things that I do. So if I'm working on the camber, I have my little steps for that in my little bag. And again, another useful tool, what I use, I just basically put them into a little cotton bag. And I said, well, obviously not the heavy aspects, just the light aspects, so that it's a quick grab all tool for my rust proofing every year. Okay, so the main thing, as I said, is this tool. I couldn't find it anywhere where you get this pressure with this extension tube. The tube itself for this particular garden hose, it's, what is it? It's 2 litre. Now, I think you can get them cheaper during the summertime here in Ireland. There is a store called, it's a discount store called Deals. Now in the UK it's called Poundland, and they do quite a nice one which fits in even better again. So just bring that gardening pressure hose to your local, gardening pressure bottle to your local hose specialist, and basically ask them for a tube that can fit around the actual brass nozzle, and that enables the brass nozzle to fit inside. That it enables the brass nozzle to fit inside the tube. Get your Jubilee clip then. And then for the other aspect, you can take this off here, so that fits around the actual nozzle. Now sometimes it might be an exacting science, so as I said, what I did is I just, using my gas cooker, I just lightly flickered the actual end of the tube over it, made it a bit more malleable, and then pushed it on as best I could. It took a few occasions, maybe 3 or 4 minutes to do that. And then, as I said, you just fill up then your Oatron. That's what I use. Now I suppose for those other places outside of Ireland and the UK, you might have another one, another tool. So basically the whole, you're looking for something that actually is a rust inhibitor. So I'm sure that your local store will have some rust inhibitor lacquer or oil. It goes into a kind of a varnish. It's quite good. I've also used previously a thing called Furtan, but that's in terms of a rust dissolver, so that dissolves rust, but it doesn't prevent rust from reoccurring. This prevents rust from occurring, and I found it to be quite good on the chassis. Now, one thing I would recommend, based on my experience, I have used these waxing protective material. Waxol is the name of the actual company, Waxol. And I have found with that, especially in the areas that are prone to rusting under the vehicle, the actual moisture gets under the actual wax. It's a coat that goes over the actual chassis. Water gets under it and it begins to rot from the inside and you can't see it. So I would not recommend that for a Discovery, in my opinion. What I would recommend based on my experience is this Oatrol, which I found to be very good. There's also another product on the side. There's another product that they make, and it's basically a product that brings out the luster in the bumpers. So my particular Discovery doesn't have that gloss finish. It has that kind of a matte, plasticky finish. It's a 2005 Discovery, and as I said, it's made for the same company, Oatrol. And I just, again, a little bit of a sponge, I put on that onto and I wipe it, and I'll probably show you another video about how that works and the results. So there we are. There's the overall materials and tools used for rust proofing my Discovery 3. Thank you for watching.